Okay.
Okay. So this one, another article that we wrote was basically Zillow can be off on pricing a lot.
Or third-party site estimates.
Third-party site estimates like Zillow and Redfin can
Exactly.
be off on price, and it's not for the reason that most people think. I think overall, if you look at the whole market, it's incredibly accurate. But what it can't do very well is see the nuances. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, but it's that biggest thing that we are always up against talking to sellers and buyers is like price estimates on third-party sites. So
Yep. Yep.
yeah,
And in general, it does give a good range because I mean, we're going to go into more detail. It's not as simple as this, but it's, data comparison based on square footage. And so to a certain extent, it's close, but what it does not get and it cannot at this time get is the nuance of it. And yeah, we wrote an article or you read an article that really goes into the details to show why that is. So I don't know what you wanted to start with.
yeah. I mean, I think just touching on the kind of some of maybe the main points, and then giving an example of like something to look at from both a buyer's and a seller's perspective when you're looking at homes. But I think basically there's like a ton of hidden factors that buyers somehow can actually feel really well, but the algorithm just doesn't measure very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So and I honestly don't know. Like one of the things, for example, the algorithm just couldn't pick up is the smell of a house, right? Like literally just like there's unless they're going to send out someone to go do like a scent reader, which maybe they do. But for now, and then the light is really difficult to tell. So just lighting in a home generally, like with photos, we can do a good job of making a dark home feel brighter. So, things like that. I will say they're getting very good at understanding layout. Zillow specifically has a really cool 3D like Matterport style option
Hmm.
that both incorporates the actual photos that the photographer took and the 3D camera. And so
Hmm.
you can get a really good sense of the layout now. But, there's just the other big thing I would say is so the quality of the remodel is a lot of times felt in person.
Yes.
You can
But not
sometimes see
over
it.
photos. Yeah.
Yeah, you can if you're really looking and you're zooming in on things, you can kind of tell. But yeah, so it's like they
Yeah.
can't tell if it's expensive,
Yeah, you
or if
can't
it's not.
tell. I mean, some people can, but you can't necessarily tell that a cabinet is particle board versus plywood, which is a big difference in quality. Or, another thing, I'm actually dealing with this right now with a buyer. They're interested in a home, and the comps do it's new construction. All the homes are exactly the same. I mean, there's very minor difference in them, but the one that they're interested in should be at a much lower value because it is two homes off of Powell, right? And the other ones are up the street. So they're not hearing or seeing the road noise and they're corner lots. That's another thing. We're comparing a corner lot home to a home that is not a corner lot and again is two homes away from Powell. Again, the algorithm doesn't know that. And that impacts value significantly.
So I don't. Tori just touched on topic number two right there,
Sorry
but
about that.
that's exactly what That's exactly I think is a huge thing is kind of the micro location. So real estate is
Hmm.
very we all know the saying location, 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 but there's micro locations within that. So if you're on a busy road and then like Portland, East Side Portland's all gridded. So if
Hmm.
you're off one of the main streets, just one house, like it's a lot quieter than being on the main street, but you're still kind of in it. But if you get like two or
Hmm.
three houses up,
Yeah.
value just go up pretty
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. Micro locations is huge in my opinion. So
Totally,
yeah,
totally.
that's
And even that busy street, that differs, right? Some streets are busier than others. So it's like there's a busy street that I could live two homes away from that one. And then there's others, it's like absolutely not. I would never do that. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for
Or
sure.
if you do, get it for the right price.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I
You know?
think that's like point number three ish or wherever it is in the actual article. But Zillow kind of they give you one number, and I do want to show that actually.
Yeah.
They're going to give you one number, but the value is actually is more of a range, and it becomes like a range once you see it, feel it, touch it, smell it, and then also figure out if there's competition, other people interested in it. Did they,
Hmm.
did Zillow get the number off on the low side? Because if they did on the low side, and then it turns out it's not, it's like a little rough around the edges, that doesn't mean it's underpriced. And so it could still be priced really well, and
Hmm.
it's gonna sell for more. It's just they got kind of lucky on it.
Hmm.
But I don't know if we want to. I mean, there's two other things I'm just going to touch on really quick, and then
Yeah.
just add whatever you want. But I would say the biggest flaw is that the algorithm assumes that the market is passive, and I think what essentially what we mean by that is that we, as the listing agent, can influence the prices, like, the value of the home very easily. It's not really easy, but basically it comes through prep. So does your house need a good amount of work to be in great condition, or does it need like 2 days with a handyman that's going to make it increase the value by just a ton, or at least the perceived value by a lot? Because a
Mhm,
lot of times it's
mhm,
just like a day or two of
mhm.
little touch up stuff, and then
Right. Or maybe it's just
then you
landscaping, it looks messy,
exactly.
and then clean
Yep.
it up, you know?
Yeah, and especially here when it's like this time
Yeah,
of year, the winter, you got the landscape just doesn't look very good. Not unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do about that,
yeah.
but, there's definitely, and then there's the pricing psychology, like, are we, again, are we underpricing or overpricing? But the algorithm, like, it's gonna give you a number. So I'm gonna dive in here. Okay, so I'm gonna just pull up Zillow really fast. Let's go. Let's just type in Portland. So if we find, let's just go Southeast Portland. Just zoom in and click on something. Let's click on one of these showcase listings. So this agent has basically made this one look a little fancier, which is great. So
Which is what we do.
450, which is what we do. Yeah. So it's listed at 450. It's been on the market for a whopping 10 hours. So here's a good example of something. So I'm going to try to find what Zillow thinks is the price, is the value, right? Because once it's on the market, it's not going to show value. So if you type in your own address on Zillow, it'll show you, what it thinks it's worth. But you got to scroll and scroll and scroll. Okay. So one of the options that we have when we list something on the RMLS is to remove the estimated market value. So we can remove that feature on every third party website if we want. So unfortunately, I clicked on this house and they've done that. So it's not telling us what the estimated value is. Well, we can bypass that by going down just a little bit lower. So for this market, Zillow is estimating from 2018 at 440, 2022 at 520, and then it peaked right here at 600. And then the day today, or yesterday, I guess, Zillow thought this was worth um, five. So see how it's hiding it? It says listed for 450, but it's actually
It's above 500,
about
isn't it?
525 here.
Yeah.
And a couple days ago it was 500, is what Zillow said. So we'll give this agent props, basically, assuming this works out well. But they basically said, based on comps, we think this home is worth somewhere around 450, and or 450 is going to be a good listing strategy price. So they listed it below the Zestimate. This is actually rare. I wasn't expecting to see that. But now if we copy this address, let me share a different screen. Okay. So this is the kind of the realtor side that most of us use. I don't know if that's true, but we all have access to this cross country as realtors. So same thing. So if you come into our side of things, it's going to say the same, kind of roughly the same thing that Zillow said.
Mhm.
25 is what Zillow was showing, and this is showing 536 with a range and a 5-star confidence between 480 and 590. So what that basically means is that 95% of the time, if you listed it somewhere, it's going to sell in this range. So they're basically showing a little bit of their work here. If you click in here, you can read the details on how that works. This, and again, I don't know, we didn't look at the photos or anything, but they're, from these quick looks, they're actually underpricing this thing.
It seems like it, yeah.
So yeah, and then the question though is, again, it goes back to everything else. Like, these algorithms are they both off, or does the agent know what they're doing? And so at this point, we'd have to stop and say, we don't know. We have to see it. And so I think that's part of the reason why these third party algorithms just aren't always perfect. And it's just, I thought we were going to take an example, honestly, of something that was listed high.
Mhm.
And so, anyways, this is kind of a fun exercise. I don't know anything you want to add on that, but I mean, we in
Well,
the
yeah, I
future
mean,
we'll know
it
what's going
can
to
go
happen.
both ways,
Yeah.
and with the right agent and the right strategy, it can be very successful. Could be wrong. We only flipped through I only saw maybe 3 photos. From what I know about where you clicked, 2 bed and 2 full bath, that's rare, and it seems to be in very good condition. 450 sounds like an excellent price. I have to imagine this one's going to get competitive. Had they listed at 599, I think it would have sat for 6 months, and then price rejection or a canceled listing. So, those are 2 different strategies. I think one work, and those are huge ranges, by the way. Again, this is way more nuanced than even we're talking about this, but we would be a lot more detailed about this. We'd want to see the house and really go over everything to determine what the strategy is. But based on what we see, it seems like a good one. And I bet they get more than 450.
Yeah. And then the only other thing that we kind of would quickly look at, and so the only thing that that a consumer can't see that we can see is what's called the private marks. And so
Hmm.
one thing it says that the owner just doesn't know the age of the roof, but it might be around 10 years old. Oil tank has been decommissioned, new electrical panel, and basement retaining wall. So like those are good
It's big.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. The roof is, yeah, that would be something that they're gonna, you're gonna want to figure
They'll
out.
figure it out. Yeah.
Yep. But they didn't write anything. I kind of would have expected to say that like an offer deadline will be set, at this time, potentially with an offer, something along those lines. Because you kind of want to, if you're going to underprice something, which we're assuming it's underpriced. This also, though, the other thing that's tricky about the algorithms and again, how they function is this has probably got a basement that is unfinished. So it has, no, does it, is it really just 1,400 square feet? Oh, it's 1950s house. Okay.
Yeah, it's 50. So I
Got
think
it.
crawl space probably.
Yeah, yeah, so
I mean,
because a lot
50s
of
have
times
basements.
yeah, in this area, it's like a lot of these homes will be, 3 stories, 1 in the basement, and that confuses the algorithm as well because technically, let's say it's just 2 stories, it's 800 square feet on the main, 800 in the basement, but the basement is unfinished versus most of the homes that are that size and spec have finished basements. It doesn't realize that it's unfinished, so
Right.
essentially is the
Right.
point.
Again, it's back to the data comparison based on square footage. And if you're putting in 1,600 in the listing, but it's actually 800 a little space, I mean, that's significantly different
Yeah,
pricing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think no, that's perfect. And then the only thing that I also see in terms of how, if the algorithm's like off, how a seller could pick maybe the wrong agent, we'll say, because of the algorithm being off. And so what I kind of
Hmm.
mean by that is, essentially, this is not a very nice word, but like, why do agents that are not very great or just, whatever, well, how do they get selected?
Hmm.
you know, and I think a lot of times it's basically the seller likes them as a person and they're kind of just using, the third party estimate sites as the value. And that agent is kind of just going along with it.
Yeah.
And so there's 2 things that are happening. One, they just don't really know what's happening, and they're happy to get a listing, whatever. But the other thing that's more, I don't know, precarious maybe is a word, but basically would be buying. You're trying to buy the listing,
Hmm.
or it's through fake confidence, a lot of
Hmm.
compliments, kind of just misleading a little bit. And so I think, that's one of the ways that this algorithm thing kind of just gets in the way, I guess,
Yeah.
of it gets noisy, right? So it's like if
Yeah.
we're
It's a
it,
distraction.
yeah, and if we just have to tell you over and over again, no, your house isn't worth that, like that's not super exciting and fun.
No, no. It's not fun for
So
anyone.
no, no, it's really not fun for anyone. That's well said. Yeah. So I think that covers it. Again, I definitely
Hmm.
went into like a lot more detail on this, but I think the last piece of this is I think AI is incredible. I think it's like going to be just really, really, really impactful in our industry and our business and everything. And I think that companies like Zillow that have big budgets are going to figure out how to like workarounds for this,
Yes.
through one-off properties where you could like, they probably won't even make you pay, but they'll just make you sign up separately or whatever. And then they're going to bombard you with agents. But basically you can say, hey, I want my actual value. And then
Hmm.
they'll run, a very, specific, they'll look at, they'll send out a photographer out there, get the whole house, get all the updates, and then really do a deep dive into what the value is. So I do
Hmm.
think that's coming around the turnpike, but it
Yeah,
comes still understanding the psychology and everything behind and the
for sure.
seasons and whatever.
Well, and back to AI, I listened to a podcast the other day, and it was with the CEO of Instagram, and he had this quote that I loved, which was, "AI is amazing for scale and for a lot of data and synthesizing that data. It's terrible at nuance, which is our job, you
Yeah.
know." So,
Yeah.
and I would agree. Yeah, it's really great for things, and then there's other things where it's like, it's just it doesn't apply to this situation. It's like it's that isn't wrong what AI said, but it does not apply to this home.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Or the other big thing is it just doesn't go unless you really force it. It doesn't dig deep enough
right,
into the solution to the problem you're asking
right,
or whatever. So
right.
I think that's a big deal where it's like you have to prompt it really nuanced things to get
Hmm.
real answers. Otherwise it's just gonna just kind of try to give you soft answers. But I do think,
Right.
I do think this whole pricing world is actually going to change. I don't know if it's in the next couple of years, but I think it's pretty cool how we can use some of the technologies as well. But again, we
Yeah,
know the
of
market, we know
course.
the micro stuff.
Yeah.
We we can see the micro stuff, and we taste,
You
touch,
smell
feel,
it?
can smell it, and then we can also figure out how do we get rid of that smell. You know,
Yeah. Yes.
so
Yes.
yeah, there's
Yep.
there's a lot of cool stuff around, but I think ultimately like there's take it with a grain of salt. It's a starting place. It's not
Yeah.
terrible,
Yeah.
but it's not great.